And we should be live. Just gonna finish setting everything up. Oh, I should send out the announcement. All right. Should be all set, all ready to go. So ask away. How's it going? I'm doing a-okay. Thanks for asking. Welcome, welcome. Howdy, howdy. Let's let everybody stream on in. Grimlock with the $5. Thank you so much. Why am I disconnected from OBS? There we go. Now I'm connected to OBS. I don't know why I have to do that all the time, but should be all set. How long have you been an atheist for? For as long as I can remember, basically. Do you believe in a cyclic universe? And if so, have we already lived before? I lean that way. I'm currently working on a model to study such a universe. Let me center myself a little bit. And in that case, yes, we would have already lived before, but before is also now. In that model anyway. What's on that chart? It's tardigrade. Do you think we will ever be able to teleport? I suspect not. Hi, I'm about to apply to university, so you think it's good to apply for physics or theoretical physics? It depends on what you want to do. Could a black hole form a big bang in another universe white hole? This is an old idea. It dates back, I think, to the 90s. It's just there's a recent paper that talks about it. I haven't read the recent paper. It still seems pretty far-fetched to me, though. Why is there more matter than antimatter? That is a big open question. It's one of the major unsolved questions in cosmology, in astrophysics. Are we change realities like dimensions? No. What conspiracy theory would you think has the most potential truth? I don't. Do you believe there's indeterminacy in the world? I lean towards no. If only because, it seems like there's a good model of quantum mechanics that doesn't require that. Can we be invited to the chat? Yes, in a bit. I'm gonna answer some questions from chat, then take a guest, and rinse and repeat. What do you think about the relationship between music and physics mathematics? There is mathematics in music, there is physics in music, but it's pretty rudimentary. Like, it's stuff that you would cover in like a first semester course in mechanics, or maybe a second semester course in mechanics. So it's not so deep, but it is there. Is there a good way to physically describe the act of an electron absorbing a photon? It's more just that, like, the interaction between an electron and a photon results in the annihilation of the photon. Like, it's like, photons are not like conserved things, right? Photons can be created, destroyed. There's no issue there. What's your thoughts, Platonism and mathematical realism? I'm not a Platonist, or a mathematical realist for that matter. What are brains? So in M theory and in string theory, brains are, so again, in string theory it's 10-dimensional, in M theory it's 11-dimensional. In those proposed universes, brains are macroscopically sized, or large, you might say, subregions of these 10 or 11-dimensional spacetimes. So imagine like a 5-dimensional slice of a 10-dimensional universe would be a brain. Skylar is straight up with a galaxy. Thanks so much. I appreciate you. What is the Doppler effect? The Doppler effect, and with another galaxy, Skylar? Thanks. That means a lot. The Doppler effect is what makes ambulances go neum, or I guess cars go neum, and ambulances go Well, I can't do the ambulance sound, but it's the reason why the pitch of an ambulance changes as it drives past you. When it's moving towards you, and when it's moving in the general towards you direction, the wavelengths get squished together because each subsequent wave happens a little or originates a little bit closer to you, and then the reverse is true when it's moving away. What field do you think could be more developed? Maybe maybe biophysics. Do protons rotate around something, or is it really just a cloud of probability? I mean, it is really just a cloud of probability. Do you think mathematical laws govern the universe, or is there something greater we can't... Skylar with the galaxy again? That's 3 galaxies in a row. Much appreciated, Skylar. That's very generous. And a... Wow. By the way, for those who don't know, that's like $60 that Skylar just donated. And a dolphin? So kind. Do you think mathematical laws govern the universe, or is there something greater that we can't comprehend? I don't think that they govern the universe, but I think that they describe the universe. Thoughts on photonics? I don't know a lot about them. a lot about photonics. I played a little bit with lasers as an undergrad, but not much more than that. What's the most fascinating fungus in your opinion, and why? I don't know a lot about fungus. Why does a moving charge create a magnetic field? Does it have to do with relativity? It does have to do with relativity. This is, in fact, magnetism is just essentially a moving electric field. That's basically all it is. Can we control anything from waves as proposed by wave string theory? Well, we can control waves. Like, we make them all the time. That's what sound is. Whenever you make a sound, you're controlling waves. Should we really be worried about AI? I kind of am. So, yeah, maybe, but it's not my field. Could a foundational universal algorithm, a primer, exist that generates all physical phenomena, essentially providing a step-by-step derivation of both quantum mechanics and general relativity? I mean, that doesn't seem like if you can do it, great, but I don't see any evidence for that. So, hi, I'm going to study physics undergrad at Imperial College next year. Give me advice. Go to office hours, or I don't know, whatever it's called at Imperial College. Go talk with your tutors. Why aren't you working during business hours on a weekday? So I am currently, so my contract just finished a month ago, and new contracts at universities don't start until fall. So I essentially have the summer off, meaning I'm employed at least for the next few months. And so my streaming schedule starts, I start streaming at around 9, and then I do research after from around noon until the end of the day. That's my set streaming, or my set schedule for most days. Will JWST find cosmic strings? They're very hard to see. I suspect not. Doing StatMech next year at uni, how cooked are you? You are so cooked. StatMech sucks. No, StatMech can be hard with a bad teacher. Magnetic field is electrons moving in space. No, magnetic field is like the motion of an electric field. Yes, also, there's a famous statistical mechanics textbook that starts off with Ludwig Boltzmann is one of the founders of statistical mechanics, and he took his own life. His work was followed up by Paul Ehrenfest, who also took his own life. Now it is our turn to study statistical mechanics, which is very funny. What would be the outcome of being able to consciously control quantum fields, Higgs field? Magic? Like, just magic? Does your stance on quantum mechanics inform any stance on indeterminism compatibilism? Yeah. So I'm a quantum determinist, if you will. Is there a linear correlation between large-scale planetary math and quantum level math? No, not really. All right. Which subjects learn first before learning physics? Algebra or geometry? Definitely algebra. Are you excited for the Nancy Grace telescope? Is that a thing? I know that there's the Remon telescope. Oh, the Nancy Grace Remon telescope. Okay, yes, that I am excited for. Yeah. Why does length contraction happen plus time dilation? So look, what we know is that everything travels through space-time at the same speed, at the speed of light. And it happens to be the case that, because this is true, you can derive a whole bunch of other consequences. And one of those consequences is that if somebody tried to measure your size as you're passing by them, that you would measure shorter, right? Similarly, if you were trying to try to look at their clock would appear to tick slower. This is just like a follow-on consequence of this interesting fact that everything travels through space-time at the speed of light. You ever eat corn the long way? I eat it in spirals. Um, According to the laws of physics, teleportation is possible, so what's standing in the way of us accomplishing this? I mean, it seems super, super implausible. What research do you do for the rest of the day? So it depends on the project that I'm working on. I have like 4 or 5 ongoing projects, so I'm just, I just kind of pick one for the day and work on that. Um, what's your first memory? I don't know. That's really hard to say. Hey, so I've written a paper. It was categorically resolved. Okay, so I have I don't know why the archive would reject something if it had a Hep theory endorsement, unless it was really, really out there, because they don't really moderate much. Um, does past, present, future me all equally exist right now? Well, not right now. Right now being present, only you exist. But in the totality of spacetime, yes, past, present, and future you exist. Yeah. I finished high school in a year. I'm thinking of studying physics. Would you recommend it? If you love it, do it. Like how would time work in a universe with metric signature minus minus plus plus plus? Well, time travel would be possible. That'd be weird. um, Also, you would have ultra hyperbolic equations, which are not deterministic. So the universe we wouldn't be able to predict what would happen next if we knew what happened now. How many research papers have you published? Like a dozen in the last 4 years or so. I'm going to be posting another one in like a week, and then we're going to be uploading it to a fairly good journal, so we're pretty confident. Which interpretation of quantum mechanics is most appealing to you and why? I prefer the many worlds interpretation because it seems like it doesn't have anything extra on top of what we know has to be true about quantum mechanics. What's your favorite but most random physics fact? That if you spin a black hole fast enough and you drop something into the black hole along the axis of rotation, and the thing that you drop is also spinning, the gravity can repel the spinning thing. It won't fall into the black hole. It's very, very weird. Is it worth it for physicists to sell their souls in order to become quants? Look, if that's your motivating factor, do it. I would rather not. Feel like experimental physics is lagging behind theory by a lot. Is this false? Yeah, no. Okay, so it depends on the field. As far as like high energy physics goes, yeah, absolutely. It absolutely in the sense that like, or I should say, as far as like fundamental physics goes, yes, because we have no idea. Like we are so far behind. We are so far away from doing anything about quantum gravity, experimentally. But there's other fields like condensed matter where they kind of keep up in tandem. Would gravitational waves slow or speed up our time? They shouldn't. No. Sorry, I'm gonna go close the door really quick. My wife's on the phone. So when are you and Ashley fighting? I think, look, I think I could take Ashley. I'm pretty tall, and also I have testosterone in my blood, and I imagine she doesn't. So, like, I think that would just be unfair, but I don't want to fight Ashley. I just think she should do better. Um, why don't physicists get paid for their papers? I mean, in a sense, they do. That's the whole point of being a research scientist. You get paid to do research, and your expected output is your papers. So why isn't the Riemann hypothesis not been solved? Why has the Riemann hypothesis not been solved yet? Because it's hard. I will not take experimental physics slander. Yeah, so look, the thing is fundamental physics, which is like what's at the base level of reality. Yes, experimental physics is behind on that. But there's a lot of physics that is not fundamental physics. What's the highest level mathematics? I've written mathematics research papers. Like it's not a matter of the classes that you've taken. Like I work as a mathematician sometimes. Gravity vector pointing towards relativistic orbital mechanics. Gravity vector pointing towards where the other body is or was. So you can treat at the first approximation, it's identical to Newtonian gravity, right? But then at next approximations, it becomes more complicated. So it depends on what the motion of the massive body is doing. If the massive body is moving at a constant velocity, it'll always point at that. It'll always point at that body. But if it's accelerating or moving as well, then it becomes a lot more complicated. Did you have any subjects while earning your PhD that you really struggled with? I mean, like, anything that's, like, algebraic geometry based is really, really hard. So I get this right. To go to a black hole and start spinning at a high enough speed, you'd have a reaction like a white hole. No, it's just a black hole that will repel you gravitationally. It's just weird. Is there any difference between today and yesterday? Well, besides that yesterday was yesterday and today was today, not really. What about quantum time dilation? You'd have to give me more details than that. If we make sound waves and control anything, why do we need any mechanical instrument like the Hinduism? I don't understand what the question means. How did they cut the granite for the pyramids? I don't know. I'm not an archaeologist. Ask an archaeologist. Where's the other 95% of the universe? It's right there. It's actually here. Do you request up to ask a question? You can, or you can just type it. What is the odds of a planet forming and life evolving like ours? Well, apparently high enough, right? And even if it's small, the universe is quite large. Is the Milky Way orbiting anything or just existing in space? So the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxy are essentially orbiting their center of mass. So Andromeda is bigger than the Milky Way, but not that much bigger. So Andromeda and the Milky Way are both orbiting around their respective center of mass, or the center of mass of the whole system. What do you think about cyclic universe theory? I think it's interesting and it's at least worth considering. Can dark matter form solids? Not as far as we know. What's your opinion on physics Olympiads? I haven't done them, and I don't know anything about them, so I can't really comment. Hey, what do I do if a floating monkey starts living with me? Probably ask your brother to get rid of him. Does that mean that a proton could decay into a neutron in a universe with metric signature? So if the metric signature is minus, minus, and then 3 pluses, I don't even know if protons can exist. Like, I have no idea what quantum field theory would even look like in that signature, or bound states for that matter. What kind of symbol do you think should go on the cover of quantum mechanics textbook? It should be the letter psi, the Greek letter psi. Have you seen the paper that suggests the universe completes one rotation every 500 billion years? I have. It's interesting, and it may very well be true, but we need more information, definitely. We need more detailed studies, because it was a pretty rudimentary study that they did, which, you know, nothing against them. That's how you start, but we need more details now. Oh, I thought I missed a super chat, but I did not. The galaxies rotate, but don't they also orbit other larger gravity centers? Yeah, but we were asking. So, okay, so sort of, but not really. So the local group is a gravitationally bound structure. The local group is Andromeda, the Milky Way, and Triangulum, and a few other like smaller dwarf galaxies. That's all gravitationally bound together. That whole thing happens to be in a cluster, or rather, like a galactic supercluster. But that galactic supercluster is not gravitationally bound. It's kind of just like a bunch of stuff that happens to be in roughly the same place. Well, do protons even exist? I mean, yeah, probably. Should we send Matthew McConaughey into a black hole just in case? Yeah, that sounds right. What is the Stern-Gerlock experiment about? The Stern-Gerlock experiment was the first experiment, as far as I'm aware, to show that electrons have quantized spin, meaning that they, or not electrons, sorry, that spin, angular momentum, comes in quantized amounts. So in this case, they took silver atoms, and I think it was silver, and they boiled them off of metallic silver, and then shot them through a magnetic field, and they found that they ended up in one of two places, rather than in a whole spectrum between the two places. So the conclusion is that the angular momentum, which is related to the magnetic dipole that the silver atom has, is discrete rather than continuous. I actually have a whole video on this, so you should go watch it. Fancy reading my dissertation? Nope. Dissertations are long. How can the expansion of the universe move faster than the speed of light? Expansion is not a speed. It's like a doubling time. So imagine you had a sheet of paper and you doubled its size every year. Well, eventually, if you draw a dot on one side of the piece of paper and a dot on the other side of the piece of paper, eventually those two dots will be, the distance between them will be growing faster than the speed of light, but nothing's actually moving, right? There's no speed here. What's happening is that you have a doubling time. We still calculate age assuming light's base speed is constant too. Yeah, of course. If the universe always existed, expanding and contracting, is the amount of matter always constant? Yeah, probably. If the hypotheses hold. What's your opinion on the axis of evil? Does it mean anything important? Most people seem to think it has something to do with some dust or some like systematics that were missing in the solar system. But it's definitely not been resolved. How many galaxies are in the unobservable universe? Who knows? Do you think it's possible to collapse a wave function with a prompt to AI? If wave function collapse is a real thing, which it may not be, you can collapse it with a camera without a person ever involved. Do you think the mathematical consistency of string theory justifies its prominence, or should we prioritize the quantum gravity's discrete spacetime structure? I think that they both have value. Give money to more physicists. Do both. Can we build a giant spring that could launch payload-style capsule into space? Probably not. What is the... How much money do you make as a physicist? Well, currently, I'm not working at a university. My old contract just ended. I'm looking for a new contract. Because I was a postdoc and these are temporary positions. But, I mean, usually it pays comfortably middle-class salaries. Do you use LLMs to assist your research work now? How are people in your field? So I don't know how other people are. I've been using... so I have a subscription to ChatGPT that I used to use for, like, Dungeons and Dragons games that I would DM for. So I still have the subscription. So I use it now as like a really quick way to do literature reviews. So if I'm trying to look into something and I want all of the relevant literature, rather than trolling through Google Scholar for like a few hours, I can just ask, an LLM to put together the relevant literature on this particular topic and give me the references. So that's what I've been using it for, which is quite handy. Chances fusion power goes commercial in the next 15 years, 30 years? Hard to say. People have been saying 25 years for like 50 years, but it seems like we're getting closer now. So maybe soon. Can you explain the centrifugal force and why it isn't real? So it's not that it's not real, it's that it's fictitious. And what fictitious means is that it's a result of the object's motion on its own, rather than some external thing applying a force to it. Are you staying in Europe? No, I'm back in the US. What's the most interesting thing about physics you're into? Anything involving black holes or the Big Bang. Those are the two things. Those are the two things that I care about most. What are your thoughts on the new hypothesis of neutronic hydrogen as dark matter? I've heard about it. I haven't read the paper, so I can't really comment in detail. Why am I getting spam from Crocs? Grimlock sent me $5 for testing while live. Support your local physicist. Thank you for the $5 on Cash App, Grimlock. I appreciate you. RuneScape fishing level? 99, actually. After Necromancy came out, I maxed, and then I quit. Can you explain zero-point energy so a child can understand it? Yeah, here's the basic idea. So the way that we talk about quantum fields in quantum field theory is we kind of think of it as just like a whole bunch of springs that fill spacetime that are glued together. These are called simple harmonic oscillators. Now, you can think of each spring as obeying the uncertainty principle. So you can't know both its position and its speed at the same time and with like extreme precision. And so if it were the case that the spring wasn't moving at all, you could know its position, i.e. at rest, or i.e. at equilibrium, and its speed at rest perfectly. But we know that that can't be the case because of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So instead, we know that there has to be some amount of oscillation. And that amount of oscillation, that minimum oscillation, is the zero-point energy. And then it fills the entirety of space, so you have some amount of energy throughout all of space. That's the zero-point energy. It's because of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, essentially. What is not convincing about the Big Bang? It's very convincing. Is the observer effect just a misnaming of what's happening, considering it's caused by the tools involved and not the actual observer? Yes, basically. Do you think naked singularities will ever be discovered, or what's the next thing do you think we will understand about singularities? I suspect that we will eventually discover that singularities are not real. So there will be no singularities, not even naked ones. How good are you at mental math? Generally pretty good. Like, not like prodigy level, but I'm generally pretty good. Do you like music? If so, what kind? I'm into metal. Specifically power metal is like my preferred subgenre. Is it true that no time can pass in the center of a black hole? If so, how did we discover this? So it depends on what a black hole is, what's actually going on inside a black hole, which we don't really know for certain. But if you take the classical model of a non-rotating black hole, then time ends at the center. Not that no time passes, it's that time ends. Is there such a thing of white holes? Well, there is. That's like a valid mathematical solution, but it doesn't mean it actually exists in the real universe. Can you briefly describe the difference between eternal inflation and big crunch? So eternal inflation is just you have kind of like a really, really enormous, like infinitely large empty space that's filled with very, very high amount of energy, and then sometimes that energy kind of quantum tunnels down to a low energy state, and it pops out of universe. And this has just been going on for eternity. And so we would be in one of those baby universes, and they would be separated by enormous distances, so you could never talk to one another. A cyclic universe, or a big crunch, would be, well, that's not the case. It's just that we live in the one universe. Universe expands. Eventually, it'll recontract and collapse in on itself. That's the idea behind the big crunch. Do you think math was discovered, classical logic, or was it invented? I think it was invented, yeah. All right, let's take a guest. Oh, I should put in headphones. Let me make sure that my audio is still working properly. Okay, let's take a guest. Remember, subscribers and friends get first dibs, but we have none of those in the guest box, so we'll just bring up a guest. Let's bring up Dinos and Bitcoin. Dinos and Bitcoin, what's up? What question you got for me?
Hi. My question basically boils down to what is the speed of push? The more long answer is if I have a 1 light-year long pole and I push it, that means that, as everything else, I think, when you push it, the other end moves instantaneously. Therefore, because I don't know if this is real or not, me and my buddies were drinking the other night and we thought of this. If we push it on one end, does that mean that the other end would get pushed as well, just like quicker than the speed of light, because the light-year
No.
pole is one
So
light-year long?
so what would happen is that you would so when you push on something, what you're doing is you're compressing it, and you basically send down a compression shockwave that travels to the other end. So that'll travel at the speed of sound in the rod. So
It's a pressure wave.
It's a pressure wave, yeah.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Anything else?
I'll see myself out. No, that was it.
All right, take care. All right, let's answer questions for another 5 or 10 minutes. The lag should have stopped. I think it fudged for a minute, but we're not dropping any frames anymore. Is it still lagging? How could it be invented when Zahi was? Okay. Can you explain electron degeneracy? I'm kind of confused. Yeah, the idea is that if you take two electrons that are in identical states, and you overlap them, or if that they would have to be overlapping if they're in identical states. Well, from the Pauli exclusion principle, that's not supposed to be possible, which means that there must be something going on that prevents them from being in identical states. And so in particular, and states can capture a lot of different pieces of information. So the state of an electron can tell you where it is, how much energy it has, how fast it's moving, all of these things. So if two electrons are in the same place, by the Pauli exclusion principle, one of the electrons has to be in a different energy state, has to be at a higher energy, or a different spin state perhaps. And so what that means is that if you force two electrons together, it will cost you energy, because you'll have to push one of them into a higher electron state, or a higher energy state. And so the amount of energy that it costs, that's the pressure, that's the force that you feel when trying to push electrons so that they overlap. I want to be an astrophysicist. How do you become a physicist? Go to a university, get an undergraduate degree in physics or astrophysics or astronomy, then go to another university and get your degree, get a master's and or PhD in the same field. That's how you do it. Do you think future physics will have prominent figures like Newton or Einstein were in their respective times, or big discoveries from now on always involve the work of many people? I think that those people will happen occasionally, but I don't know if there are any alive right now. Do you think AI or quantum computers will be more important or impactful? AI will probably have a more significant effect on everyday life. Yeah. Could you tell us your educational path? Like from what interested you in high school? So I've been interested in physics since I was a wee lad. I was like 7 or 8 or something like that. So I was always pretty good at math. So I just took whatever the highest math class I could at any given time throughout high school. And then I went to university and I got a bachelor's degree in physics and a bachelor's degree in mathematics. And then I went and got my master's and my PhD in physics afterwards. What is the most difficult field of physics? In my opinion, any field of physics that's not my own is the most difficult field of physics. Do you think our reality was changed by the Hadron Collider? No, absolutely not. What could be a new element or substance that is out there, but we have... Well, so elements probably aren't any new elements, right? Elements are made from protons, neutrons, and electrons, and we basically have the physics of those things figured out. However, there could be other particles that we haven't discovered. These could be things that make up dark matter, for example. Does Big Bang Theory rely on the presumption of dark matter energy? Not really. It kind of provides evidence for it. So the piece of data, one of the biggest pieces of data that we have for the Big Bang is the cosmic microwave background radiation. And if you examine the actual fluctuations in the light that, or in the radio waves that we get from the cosmic microwave background radiation, that allows us to infer that there's a certain amount of dark matter and a certain amount of dark energy, which agrees with other observations. What's up with electrons and quantum computers? Yeah, what's up with them indeed. They're very weird. I'm a candidate for IPHO representing Cyprus. Oh, the International Physics Olympiad. It's in a month in Paris. How should I prepare? I don't know. I've never did the Olympiad, so. Do you think physics has reached its peak and there's little to no more development? No, absolutely not. Anybody who tells you that just isn't interested in physics and hasn't thought about physics or hasn't done physics. What is the latest discovery that got you the really but really super excited and explains what it means, please? Probably the DESI result. So this was about 2 months ago now. So about 2 months ago, the dark energy spectroscopy instrument team released a new set of data from 3 years of data that, at least according to their analysis, implies that dark energy is not constant, which is fascinating and very, very, if true, because some people don't think it's true. Some people think that there were like systematic errors or something. But if true, is groundbreaking and potentially Nobel Prize winning. Why didn't you keep your promise and go on Darth Dawkins live? I did. And then he kicked me. Like, I did. If a 4D being visited our world, how would everyday objects appear to it? They would be able to see inside of it, presumably. We have a did we just get a new subscription? We just got a new subscription, but I didn't see who it was. From Azriel, thank you for the subscription on TikTok. I appreciate you. By the way, if you want to support, the Cash App works now. There's a Cash App in the link tree in my bio on TikTok. There's a Cash App in the description on YouTube. The Cash App finally works. I fixed it yesterday, so that's a thing. How's your day going, physicist? It's fine. It's an early morning, Thoughts on the Fermi paradox? Yeah, the universe is big, and we haven't been around for very long. How did we evolve from single-cell organisms? Ask a biologist. They'll have a better answer. Will quantum gravity be testable in our lifetime? That is a very good question. I have no idea. Really want to be an astrophysicist, but I'm 22 and have to start from scratch. Okay, that's fine. Plenty of people start college at 22 because they go join the military, so you could do it. What's your research on? I do relativity and differential geometry. What's a quark? A quark is a fundamental constituent of matter. It is the thing that makes up protons and neutrons. Can you explain the Euler-Lagrange equations to me? Yeah, so the Euler-Lagrange equations are basically the chain rule. Essentially, if you're trying to find the extremum of some integral, then with respect to some variable functions, then you essentially take the functional derivative with respect to the different variable functions that your integral depends on. And then you can use the chain rule to rewrite one of those functional derivatives in terms of another and factor, and you end up with the Euler-Lagrange equations. If you travel at the speed of light, does time stop for you? Could you travel anywhere instantaneously? Well, you can't travel at the speed of light. How did gravity start to exist? It seems like gravity would have always been here. Why can't you have negative pressure? You can. That's what dark energy is. Negative pressure is just pulling, not pushing. If you double the cow in size every second for 100 years, would it destroy the universe? Yeah, probably. Would the dynamic qualities of quantum system have more applications in our personal day-to-day? I don't understand the question. If the universe is a quantum system, who or what collapses its wave function? I don't think that wave function collapse is a thing. Wave function collapse doesn't need to exist in order for us to explain our observations. You just need decoherence and wave function branching, and that would be enough. What kind of energy is present in Planck time? I don't know what that question means. Planck time is not like a particular moment in time. It's just a duration. And I don't know what you mean by what kind of energy. Can a black hole actually be a quark star or something similar, not infinitely dense? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ideas as to what a black hole actually is. We haven't seen any evidence that like distinguishes between these different models though. Can you see your hand in front of your face in space? As long as there's light around, sure. What is the equation of force for a rocket leaving the Earth? Well, you could use the rocket equation, but really all that's happening is that you have a reaction force. So the rocket throws stuff at the back, and that because it's throwing stuff at the back, the rocket gets pushed forward. Why do photon wavelengths widen as they travel in space instead of staying static? Imagine that you have like a wave, and the space that wave takes up stretches. Well, the wavelengths will get bigger. That's all. If you change a black hole's characteristics from inside the event horizon, can info get out? In principle, it shouldn't be able to. There's nothing that you should be able to do inside the black hole that will be observable from the outside, except maybe in the form of Hawking radiation. How can we reconcile the flow of time in quantum mechanics with the dynamic curve space-time general relativity? That is a very big question that nobody knows the answer to yet. Have you heard of the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics and natural science? I have. It's a good essay. Are black holes real objects or just effective field descriptions? They seem like they're real objects. We can detect things that look like black holes, yeah. How do you earn money by being a physicist? Working at a university, typically. What does it mean when someone says mass is smeared across spacetime? What it means is that mass is not located at a point. There are not like single points of mass, rather things that have mass take up space. All right, let's bring on another guest. Let's bring up Matthew to ask a few questions.
Hey, how's it going?
Matthew, doing all right. What you got for me?
Well, you see, I'm having a problem with astrophysics and the Big Bang Theory. And I kind of want to run a couple things by you and see what you think.
Okay, sure.
So, all right. So, my thing is, why can't the universe be rotating, not expanding?
Those two things would produce different observations, right? I mean, like,
Would they?
if it was rotating, we would see everything moving in the same direction, and we wouldn't see things getting further away from each other.
Well, we don't really see things getting further away from each other. We're just detecting that in the redshift of things, correct?
Okay, sure. We wouldn't see redshift if there was rotation, if we were seeing if the universe was rotating, for example.
But we would see redshift if it was curving, though, correct? If space was curved, we would see redshift as it curves away from us, right?
I don't know what you mean by space curves away from us. But by the way, there's another reason why we know that space isn't rotating. If space were rotating, if the universe were rotating, we would detect anisotropies. In particular, we would detect a preferred axis of rotation, which we just don't see in the data. The universe looks basically the same in every direction.
Well, I'll definitely agree with that. I mean, no matter where you are in the universe, you always, from a perspective, appear like you are in the center. I agree with that.
And that wouldn't be the case if the universe were rotating, by the way.
Why wouldn't it be?
If the universe, so imagine a three-dimensional thing rotating. If you pick an arbitrary place in there, and then you imagine what it's like from that place's perspective, the universe will look vastly different from if you picked some other place.
sure, but
Like if you pick the actual
you,
center of rotation, it would look like things are moving transverse to you. But if you pick something that's not at the center of rotation, it would look like things are moving kind of with you if they're nearby, and they're moving in the other direction if they're far away. It would look very, very different. The universe would just look different in different places.
I agree with you, but you're prescribing that to third dimensional rotation, not fourth dimensional.
So are you I mean, we could work out what the details would be like if
That
the
would be
universe
great.
were a three-dimensional thing. You're saying rotating. In what sense when you say four-dimensional rotation? Because we could talk about three-dimensional rotation, then you have
Really
axis.
imagine it, right?
Four-dimensional.
You can't imagine.
We can describe it mathematically, but four-dimensional rotations take place in a plane rather than about an axis. They take place about an axis, or about a plane rather than about an axis. But I mean, suffice it to say, any sort of rotation would confer a preferred like a preferred axis or a preferred plane, which we just don't see.
Well, and you also have to consider the vastness of the of what's going on, and how little we would see to our cosmic horizon. Correct? And
I
we
mean, like
kind of
it. Look. So
actually
if the claim
observe that.
if the claim is that the universe is so big and it's actually rotating, but that rotation looks identical to expansion because the effect of actually there's no way to get from rotation to expansion. You'll never be able to get from rotation to uniform redshift in all directions.
You can if you perceive that the expansion is sort of an optical illusion, though, in my opinion. And
I mean, like,
and the math works out.
so here's what I would suggest. If this is so, I mean, setting aside the redshift, we also have the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is a smoking gun. But setting that aside, if you're convinced of this,
Sure.
go work out the details. See if you can make it explain observations.
Okay.
And publish a paper.
So can I run this by you about the cosmic microwave background radiation?
Sure.
Like that, So they perceive that to be like the start of the Big Bang, but we can see it everywhere. Correct. So it's all around a perimeter, right? So what happens when? So we have a cosmic horizon. There's obviously things that we cannot see beyond that horizon, correct?
Yep.
And if there's a horizon, therefore there has to be curvature. Would you agree with that?
Curvature in what? Do you mean like curvature in the Riemannian geometry sense, or do you mean curvature in like? So a cosmic horizon doesn't necessarily imply spatial curvature. It does. Well, no, it doesn't even imply space-time curvature. You will have a cosmic horizon in flat space-time. It'll just be growing.
Okay, so my thing is that the cosmic microwave background radiation almost seems like the city lights to me. So like I almost feel like dark energy and dark matter, that's the stuff that's out there. That's actually just physical matter and physical energy that we just cannot see. And the cosmic microwave background radiation is, let me put it to you in like an analogy form. You approach a city, you're not going to see the city at first, but you will see the city lights cascade in the sky, right? So that's where I'm thinking. And in terms of your previous question, when we observe galaxies that are like 30 billion light years away in a 13.5 billion year old universe, quote unquote, then we can account for that without expansion because we know that gravity can bend light. And why wouldn't it be possible for gravity to be bending that light into our cosmic horizon, giving it the appearance that it is expanding when we're actually? I just think the physicists are flat earthing the universe, honestly.
On what basis?
I don't.
Is there some piece of evidence that doesn't align with the Big Bang, for example, that you have a problem with, that you think your model better explains?
I mean, all these observations that we're getting from the James Webb Telescope.
The James Webb is consistent with the Big Bang. All of the observations are consistent with the Big Bang. Yeah, we're not detecting anything. We're not detecting anything older than 14 billion years.
Even in the Dark Ages.
Even in the Dark Ages. Now, what it's not consistent with.
The Big Bang model, we have galaxies
according to the Big Bang model
there that weren't supposed to be there.
So that's if you combine the Big Bang model and kind of rather unsophisticated models of galaxy formation. But the data that we have is consistent with the Big Bang. It's just not consistent with how quickly we thought galaxies could form. This doesn't really do anything for the actual validity of the Big Bang model.
I would
though.
agree that the data is consistent with the appearance of expansion.
Yeah,
But
so
again,
can your theory better explain the data that we have?
Mathematics can logically help solve that to where the math plays as part of an optical illusion, to where it can actually describe as rotation or a form of rotation. I can't necessarily, rotation's a bad word because we are dealing with a fourth dimensional space-time.
Look, it's so the mathematics that we have for the Big Bang is like really, really good, and it fits the data really, really well. Now there's some wiggle room.
I agree.
So unless you can point to something that like the Big Bang just gets wrong, which the James Webb observations are not an example of, or something where the Big Bang math is just too complicated and your model makes it simpler, there's just no reason to accept like an alternative model. So what I would suggest is, if you really believe this, go write a paper about it. Go do the mathematics, show that your model makes better predictions, and write a paper about it. And if you're right, it'll make the news. And if you're wrong, well, then you'll know it's wrong.
Well, it's my paper won't get peer reviewed, so that would be kind of like pointless. But
why do you think so?
I appreciate you. I'm not in college. I'm 46 years old. I've already done college, and I'm on with other things. This astrophysics is a hobby of mine. It's not a career. I just think in order to test this theory, we need to take that telescope and put it farther outside of our solar system. To be perfectly honest with you, if we can launch
why would that help at all? Jabroni, thank you for the galaxy. I appreciate you.
If we can launch a telescope further away, it should be able to see things that are further away. Would you agree?
No, not in any sensible way. So
why?
I mean, it is technically true the observable universe would be slightly larger, or would be slightly different for something that's like, I mean, your observable universe is slightly different from my observable universe, but our observable universe are different. The observable universes that we have differ by like, a few thousand kilometers, whereas the things that we can see, the distance between galaxies is like millions of light years. So you would have to put something millions of light years further away from us in order to see more. And then you wouldn't be able to get that information back for millions of years. So it just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Like there's no getting around the observable universe. You can't send stuff further away, see a larger observable universe, and then get that information back.
I think it's possible through quantum mechanics and entanglement. I think that we will eventually...
Unfortunately, it's not. There's something called the no communication theorem, which prevents communication using entanglement.
Well, then how do they communicate?
They don't. There's no communication between quantum systems. It's not a thing. I have a video on this. I actually have several videos on this, so you should go watch them.
Can you point? Yeah, great. Point it to me.
It'll be in my quantum mechanics playlist.
That'd be awesome.
So go look at my quantum mechanics playlist. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that might be interesting to you.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time. I just want to lay that by you and see what you thought about it, because to me, it seems like astrophysics is just flat earthing the universe. And, I like to think that there's more than what, science thinks that there is. But, that's just me, though. So I appreciate your time, though, man. I
take care.
Really love having conversations about this kind of stuff. So it's awesome.
All right, let's go back to answering questions. Can all physicists distinguish notation language from the matter referenced, or are you talented? I'm not sure what that question means. I don't know what that question means at all. Do you have any tips for learning complex physics topics without getting lost? No. Do you think space-time is just emergent? It depends on the day. I'm very agnostic on it. Where are we at with unifying general relativity with quantum mechanics? Lots of people have lots of ideas, but no definitive progress, as far as I know, or no definitive answer. Do you think we live in a simulation? No, I do not. Does it frustrate you when there's differences in notations in papers so much? What was before the Big Bang? We don't know. If you had to be an engineer, what field would you choose? I wouldn't. I wouldn't be an engineer. I would just, I guess I would hate my job if I were. Explain what you can, what you know in quantum physics about 1 over 137. 1 over 137 is approximately equal to the fine structure constant. And the fine structure constant, it just tells you how strong the electromagnetic force is. That's it. If I had to, nuclear engineering maybe? I don't know. If I had an expanding cylinder, or maybe, yeah, maybe nuclear engineering or something. If I had an expanding cylinder stuff in a toilet roll, no. Is space-time smooth and fixed at all times? Well, in some sense, that's the expectation of relativity, yeah. If the universe is isotropic, then why do we have Hubble tension? That's the question, right? Where would one start to learn about quantum physics? At a university, in a Physics 101 course. Fear's interaction with the $20, thank you. If distance were not a factor, would Titan or Mars be less problematic for humans to colonize? We don't know a lot about Titan. Titan is definitely colder, but it might be more hospitable, just because it's further from the sun, so there's probably less radiation. But there's a lot of, and you can also be underwater or under the seas. So it's really not clear. But one might hope that Mars would be, because Mars is quite close. Why did the original string theory only work when 27 is spatial? It was 26, and it's because the original string theory was bosonic. So when you work out the details of what you need for a consistent bosonic string theory, this is with no fermions, that means no electrons, no protons, etc. If you only have bosons, then the math works out that you need exactly 26 dimensions. However, if you incorporate fermions, there's some terms that are positive and some terms that are negative when you're computing what the dimension has to be in order to have consistency, and so you end up with 10. Why is there something rather than nothing? I don't know. Why could there be nothing rather than something? If you traveled fast enough, could you negate spaghettification? No. I mean, like, you could get to the center of a black hole fast enough so that the force wouldn't be enough to rip you apart, but the force also grows grows without bound as you approach a singularity, if the singularity actually exists. Since stars destroy matter, doesn't the Big Crunch seem unlikely? Stars don't destroy matter. I don't know what you mean by that. Can information truly be destroyed, or does the universe preserve it forever? The consensus seems to be that information is conserved. But that's still a little bit up for debate. Focus on saving Earth rather than abandoning it. That's a good point, yeah. Explain where does the thing singularity that started the Big Bang come from? Nobody knows. Host loves hearing himself talk. I'm literally answering questions. So it's not that okay. Is there any way to prove the presence of higher dimensions in science? Yeah, in principle. So for example, if there are more dimensions that are just curled up very, very small as predicted in string theory, you would expect that the dynamics of the laws of physics would change as you get to the scale where those dimensions are around the same size. So like if you zoom in enough, the laws of physics will start to change as you zoom in closer to where those dimensions are considered large now. So yeah, you could detect them, absolutely. Favorite instability or phase transition? I don't think I have one. Can curvature alone explain gravity? Yeah, that's what general relativity is. What do you think of the Alcubierre drive? Would the mechanism really work for FTL travel? Yes, the trouble is you can't make them because it requires negative mass. How the hell did they calculate the speed of light so precisely? Well, first, you have to give credit to the experimentalists of the late 1800s. They didn't have any of the kind of tech that we have today, but they were really, really good at doing measurements and being clever about it. And we've gotten much, much better since then. But then, and I don't remember when this was, eventually we just defined the meter so that the speed of light is exactly what we wanted it to be. Passed your defense today? Congrats, Cools. At what size does quantum mechanics rules no longer apply? Normal mechanics start. Quantum mechanics in principle should always apply, but it's just that as you zoom out, the behavior of a whole bunch of quantum mechanical things starts to look more classical. And so maybe that's at the scale of large molecules. At like normal temperatures and pressures. Do you have a job to pay bills? Well, currently, I mean, look, I'm between contracts. So most university contracts start in the fall and they end in spring. So I'm currently on summer break, if you will, or unemployed, if you will. So currently this is paying the bills, but I make you know, a few $1,000s a month from TikTok. So it at least will get me by until I land another contract. Because the position I just had was a temporary one. The position I'm looking for will be a temporary one, unless I get a permanent one, which would be great too. Why do people take string theory seriously? Because they are the only ones who have come up with a consistent theory of quantum gravity. That's why. Who is right about warp drive, Alcubierre or Notario? Notario is just kind of more has a more sophisticated version. That's all. I should. Is an event horizon the smoothest thing ever? An event horizon isn't a thing. It's just a place. What's your area of specialization? I do relativity and differential geometry. Are you a college professor? No. If information is preserved, would that imply the universe is fundamentally absurd? I don't know if it'd be fundamentally absurd, but it'd be very weird. Very, very weird. Do you believe in a multiverse? No. How do you feel about Mond? I'm not convinced. Any advice for applying to grad school? Do really well in the PGRE. Or on the GRE for whatever topic you're applying to. Has the speed of light been constant since the Big Bang? It at least seems that way, yeah. Why is it hard to experimentally verify string theory? Because the predictions that it makes, like the fundamental predictions that it makes, occur at energies far, far higher than we have access to. What level do you teach? I'm not a teacher. At least I haven't been for a few years. I taught intro-level physics courses at a large university while I was a grad student, but I'm not a grad student anymore. Can you tell us what your job is? I just went over that. Is a singularity a thing or a place? It's probably not real at all, but it's probably more akin to a place. We are always time traveling forward. That's true. Okay, is the border between the zone in which light cannot escape versus the rest of the universe smooth? Yeah, generally. I mean, it kind of has to be in order. It depends. If you mean mathematically smooth, then like whether it's C infinity or not is a different story, but it's at least C2. Because if it's not C2, then relativity breaks down. And relativity shouldn't break down at the event horizon. So yeah, it should be smooth in some sense. Why does the shower curtain move to me in the shower? A lot of reasons. I made a video about this a while ago, but it's actually not simple. Are you an Everettian or Copenhagen? I'm an Everettian guy. Have you read Eric Weinstein's Geometric Unity? No, I haven't, and I'm not going to, because it's very, very long, and people who are more informed on that particular type of topic have said it's bunk, so... what about Lenz's positive energy superluminal drive? I made a video about it. It's not positive energy, it turns out. It's only positive energy when viewed from the perspective of one observer, but viewed from the perspective of other observers, it's negative energy, which means that it requires negative mass. So before the Big Bang, there's obviously a Pangea-type planet or star that exploded. Well, that's not really how that works. You're so smart. I just want to know what type of job I'm a researcher. At least that's what I spend my day doing. Like I just finished a contract, so I'm looking for another contract. So like, currently unemployed, but like, my profession is as a physics researcher / educator, and mathematics as well. If gravity curves spacetime, could consciousness or observation influence that curvature, revealing a deeper link? Well, that's never been detected, so no. How close are we to fusion energy? Hard to say. Really hard to say. You'd have to ask a fusion researcher because that's just too far. To know the actual like details is beyond me. Extra explanation with the $5. If someone were to time travel backwards and live in the same time as their past self, would they be able to backwards engineer how it happened? This is a time travel paradox. Fortunately, time travel paradoxes don't happen. You can actually show that even if you were to get into a time machine, basically, you would just end up undoing what you were doing. You can't end up in the same place as yourself, essentially. Or rather, you can't... Let me rephrase. You can exist in multiple places at once, but you can't talk to yourself across between those two places. Just the way the space-time diagram works out, it just doesn't work. Who is the smartest physicist, in your opinion, do you think? It's either Einstein or Newton. It's got to be. Does quantum entanglement imply fast and light information transfer or not? It does not. Look up the no communication theorem. It solves it right there. How do we know that the other side of the universe is not antimatter? Well, so if there were a lot of antimatter in the universe, in the observable universe, then there'd be a place where the matter stops and the antimatter starts. And at that boundary, we would see antimatter annihilation events happening all the time. And we don't see that anywhere in the universe. So could space-time be the fabric that remains when matter-antimatter annihilates? I don't understand the question. How much of the observable universe have we discovered? I don't know what you mean by discovered, but we've seen a lot of it. Divide by zero, get a cake with $5. Is the search for dark matter a blind alley like the search for Vulcan in the 19th century, or could dark matter be an indication of new physics? Most physicists think that dark matter is an indication of new physics, like a new particle or something like that, or like a new particle or microscopic black holes or something like that, which is a new type of physics, right? However, we have indirect evidence that such a thing exists. Now, the question is what is that new physics? Is that new physics that relativity is wrong, at least at some degree? In which case, that would be more like the Vulcan case. And people are looking into that. That's what MOND is, modified Newtonian dynamics. On the other hand, probably the majority of physicists think that it's like some extra form of matter that we can't see, because that's consistent with the cosmic microwave background radiation. There's a lot of tests for this that make that kind of like the more mainstream view. What are your thoughts on qubits? They're neat. Like I don't know what the question is. What contract did you just finish and who contracted? It was with the university. I worked at a university. I had a 2.5-year contract, so I finished the contract. It was a research position. Are 10 physical dimensions likely, and if so, how does that work? They're likely if string theory is true. I'm writing a paper about axisymmetric warp drive. What's your opinion? I'm pretty sure that's already, like, I think I've read a paper about that already. Is it theoretically possible to recover antimatter from the decay of moscovium? Not that I'm familiar with. How can you explain the island of stability in the periodic table? I've made a video about it a while ago, but yeah, the island of stability is basically a proposed number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom, where because they match so-called magic numbers, I should back up. Magic numbers are, I should back up even further. You know how in chemistry, how you learn that the inner shell of the innermost shell of an electron has 2 electrons, or of an atom has 2 electrons, then the next one out has 8, and then the next one out after that has 8 more, and then the one after that I think has like 18 or 10 or something like that. Those numbers come about from quantum mechanics. And those are so-called and when the electron shell is filled, that's like magic. It's the atom or the chemical that fills it is stable. So it turns out that one way that you can describe the nucleus of an atom is in a similar kind of shell model. And so the protons and neutrons in the atom also have magic numbers. So the most stable elements are going to be those elements that have the magic number of protons and the magic number of neutrons. And so the idea is that there might be a large number of protons and neutrons right up around the 120 or 125 range, where if you have 120 and 120, or it'd be like 125 protons and like 180 neutrons or something like that. Right around that range, we kind of expect to see increased stability, because that's when you get to the magic number of protons and neutrons. So the question is would that make them stable? That's a much harder question. It's not clear, but we at least expect them to be more stable than the nearby elements. Doesn't the collapse of the wave function imply the loss of information? Yes, but I don't think that wave function collapse happens. And most cosmologists are not really on board with that either. Do you get to pick what you focus your research on? In a sense, yeah. Thoughts on Kerr black holes? Yeah, they're very, very weird. What do you think about the Bob Lazar story? It's fake. If time stands still at the event horizon, how can anything enter a black hole? Time doesn't stand still from an event horizon. It just looks that way from the outside. But if you're passing through, then it's no issue. Can you explain Dirac delta function intuitively? It's just a spike. That's all it is. It's just a really narrow, really tall spike. If gravity is geometry, does that mean that there's no real force at all? Well, in some sense, all forces are geometry. That's the way that they're described in the modern field theory language. It's described geometrically. So in that regard, gravity is not really special. How well versed are you in general relativity in 1 through 10? Like, probably 9. I want to study physics in university. Is it hard? Depends on the person. I had a great time, but some people in my cohort struggled, so... Does electrical signal we send experience time dilation because of its speed? The electrical signal is conveyed by electromagnetic waves, and that's not a thing insofar as it's like a signal. The electrons move quite slowly, so not really, no. In your opinion, just a yes or no, do you believe God exists? No. How much time did it take for you to get a PhD in math? 2 years after so I did a master's in 2 years, a PhD in 5. So a little bit on the long side, but it is the way it goes. How deep do you think the connection between symmetry and conservation laws really goes? I think that that's fundamental. I suspect that that's fundamental. Are you able to integrate AI to your research or still not relatable? I can use it as like an undergrad who can go like look up the relevant literature for me. That's what I've been using it for. I could probably use it to do simple calculations. That like just to test out ideas without actually having to go through all the work, just to like see what the result would look like if I were to do XYZ. But I haven't done that really. 9 plus 10, what is it? 17. Wait, isn't it supposed to be what's 29 plus, or what's, isn't it like, well, how does the bit go? Bro, not even Einstein was a 9, Tesla could have been an 8, and he was the closest. How familiar are you with relativity? I mean, we know more about relativity now than Einstein did. Tesla didn't understand relativity at all. So, like, Tesla didn't know anything about relativity. Why can't we have time shorter than a Planck time? There's nothing saying you can't. That just might be the smallest amount of time that you can measure. 21, that's the bit. Yeah, I'm supposed to say 21. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Tesla didn't even think relativity was true. How does something being really big give it a gravitational pull? That just seems to be like how space-time works. Why that's the case? We don't know. Nobody knows. It's the same reason, like, why does something having charge make it attract other things that have charge? That just seems to be how electromagnetism works. Explain neutrinos. Neutrinos are a lot like electrons, except they have no charge. So all of the things that electrons need charge to do, neutrinos can't do. So the collapse would just be that the information became inaccessible. In a sense, yeah. Was Bob Lazar telling the truth about element 115? No. Do you like calculus? I guess, yeah. Your Discord invite isn't working. It does. You just have to copy and paste it into a into a browser. Are engineers scientists? Most of them are not. No. But that's not like a bad thing. They're just not. It's just not their job. Can you set up a pendulum between two celestial bodies to establish a near frictionless swing? I guess, yeah. Are neutrinos the smallest particles with mass we've seen, or quarks? So we don't talk about particles in terms of size, if they're fundamental, but we can talk about their mass. And neutrinos do seem to have the smallest mass that we've ever seen. Why'd you choose cosmology? Well, it's interesting. But to be clear, I'm not a cosmologist. I have one paper that I've written on cosmology. I'm working on another. I have one paper on quantum gravity. I have... Oh, it's 0811. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, y'all. I forgot to disarm the alarm this morning. Guess I'm gonna get a call from the cops. Oops. I'm back. So I don't know. I'll probably have to step away in a minute. I'm not used to having to set an alarm because I didn't have an alarm in the apartment that I lived in. Rip. Swatted myself. Yeah, exactly. What's your skill level in math? I'm pretty good, generally. I'm published mathematically, so. Rip. How did he know about element 115 so long before he discovered it? He didn't. All of his predictions are wrong. All his predictions about 115 are wrong. Hawking radiation is purely thermal and carries no information. Well, that's the question. We don't know if it doesn't carry information. Data is just observation. What's data? It's just a representation of observed properties. Does the Born rule emerge naturally from many worlds or must be added? Depends on who you ask. What is the most accurate inflationary model right now? I don't think that there is like a single one. Are you a mathematician and a physicist? Yeah, depends on who you ask. What happens when antimatter goes into a black hole? It just contributes to the total mass. What's the deal with Oumuamua? Just a rock from space, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the phone call. What is more useful, physics or physisant? Do you think math is invented or discovered? I think it's invented. What's the most recent research project you worked on? I'm working on several. So there's not a single one. How is Hawking radiation measured? It hasn't been measured. It's theorized, if you prefer. But we have good reason to think that it's true. Yes, I'm just a mathematician with a lab coat on. Absolutely. It was synthesized in 2003 and he mentioned it years before. Yes, anybody could have mentioned element 118. Like mentioning that like an atom isn't particularly hard. Watch. I'm gonna mention element 122. Now in 30 years when they synthesize that, does that mean that I've done anything? How did life start? I don't know. I'm not a biologist. We'll use physics to help ice capture Mexicans. Why would I do that? Stable isotopes of 115 are possible? Prove it. Go win your Nobel Prize. You think the increasing velocity of the universe expansion is thermally driven? No. No, I don't. What's the difference between black ball and wormhole? What? I don't understand what that means. Is 0 a number not? Yeah, of course it's a number. Is observation effect on waves particles caused by light affecting them to see? Well, no, it's a result of like something big interacting with a quantum system. You get your info from Wikipedia? Who gets their info from Wikipedia? Oh, I think two people are debating. Never mind, they're not talking to me. Okay, yeah, you guys can debate if you want. Do you think that gravity could depend from information? Maybe sort of. But I'm not super convinced of it yet. Do you think we'll have a significantly greater understanding about dark matter in the next 20 years? I hope so. I really hope so. But hard to say. Do you think the existence of an ordered universe, physical laws, implies the existence of a creator? No, I don't. Can there be properties on the boundary in ADS-CFT that are not dual to properties in the bulk? Well, if that's the case, then ADS-CFT isn't true, right? What's your research about? I do stuff on black holes. I do a little bit on cosmology. I do stuff in stuff that string theorists might care about. I do stuff in just pure mathematics in differential geometry. I was in the queue, but something glitched. I'll rejoin now. Is information ever truly lost in black holes, or is always recoverable in principle? That's the question, but generally the mainstream consensus seems to be that yes, you can recover it from Hawking radiation. Why is Einstein so influential in physics? Well, he came up with, he is in some sense, the founder of relativity, which makes up one of the giant columns of modern physics. General relativity describes gravity. On the other hand, he also proved the photoelectric effect. He proved, I'll read that in just a minute. he proved or he explained the photoelectric effect, he explained Brownian motion, and he did E equals mc squared. So like E equals mc squared, Brownian motion, like all of these things are super, super relevant. Brownian motion and the photoelectric effect kind of kicked off quantum mechanics, like proved that it's real. So he's kind of responsible for like the two major branches of physics, so that's why. Yasser Abdul Amir with the 10 pounds says, I'm a medical doctor and I'm self-studying math and physics for fun, as I've always been interested in it. Do I need to study mathematical proofs in order to understand theoretical physics? No, generally not. Generally, you do not. I think I'm freezing. So no, you generally don't need to. Somebody was saying something about Tesla, and they're really salty that I don't think that he knew what relativity was. What did he say? Why would you debate that Tesla's findings had nothing to do with E equals mc squared? Because they didn't. E equals mc squared like came from Maxwell, not Tesla. And Steiner is just a Tesla fanboy, which is always funny. Tesla fanboys are the best. Thank you for the 10 pounds, by the way, Yasser Abdul Amir. What's your learning process routine, both when you were studying fundamentals? How do you keep yourself up to date on new articles knowledge? So I read new papers. My learning process or routine when I was studying, when I was like in university, was I went to lectures, I did the homework, I read the book. That's what I did. Do you think entropy is the mechanism that caused life? Yeah, that seems right. How much computer science knowledge needed for physics bachelors? Not much, but maybe more now. Confirm consciousness if fundamental. Well, I don't think it is, so. Thoughts on using a bridge theory using black holes? I don't know what that question means. What area of research fascinates you the most, and what would you like to research in that area? I really like cosmology and black hole stuff, so anything like that. Do you do math outside of your work for fun? Well, my work is math, so no, not really, because the math I do like, so that's the math I would do anyway. So that is work when I do it. So, yes, but also no. Do physicists think metaphysics is goofy? Probably not. I would imagine that most don't, but most also don't think about it. If the collapse is that the information became inaccessible, then where did the information go? Well, it didn't go anywhere. It's just you are part of the information. So the information tied to you gets split up in the wave function, if you take wave function realism seriously. Does time truly exist? Yeah, but maybe in the same sense that like wetness exists for water. Is there anything in cosmology or black holes that you would like to discover? I don't know, something to put my name on. That'd be pretty cool. Having a hard time with thermodynamics. Can you please give some tips? No, I hated thermodynamics, so I can't give any. How far behind is he in chat? Not really, but I also it's harder to follow YouTube chat because people also debate in YouTube chats rather than just asking questions. How many papers have you published? Something like a dozen. I'd have to go back and count, but something like a dozen. If you're thinking about what the world is like, you're thinking about metaphysics. I mean, in a sense, I guess. Is there an upper-lower limit to GeV? Well, yeah, if you go below 1 GeV, then you're not at a GeV anymore. Do you prefer Milk-Dromeda or Andromeda Way? I like Milk-Dromeda. Does your interpretation of physics leave room for free will? No. Do you think studying physics is good for a second major alongside math? Yeah, absolutely. If Hawking radiation preserves information, what mechanism do you think encodes it? Quantum hair, entanglement structure, or something else? I don't know. I don't really have a. Also, David's orbit, you liar, liar, liar. You said that you were sending that you said that you use M dashes yourself, but because you typed this out yourself, that dash is not an M dash when it should be. So you liar, you were talking to me through ChatGPT. Don't even lie to me again about it. If the group is down, how far is up? If the ground is down, how far is up? Up is just a direction, just like down is. What's the difference between the Z and W bosons? Z bosons are neutral. W bosons are charged. So Z bosons can mediate changes between things that have the same charge, and W bosons mediate changes between chargeless leptons and charged leptons, or it can change the charge of an interaction. No more guests. Probably. Maybe I'll take one more. Yeah, I'll take one more. Let's talk to Quasi. Quasi, how's it going?
Oh, what's up, man?
What questions you got for me?
Oh, I'm sorry, what did you say?
What questions you got for me?
Oh, shoot. Man. Alright, it's not a good time. I thought I had a second. I'm sorry, dude.
You're good. Take care, man. Azrael, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How you been?
I'm doing all right. What questions you got for me?
Yeah, so my question is going to be like eternal universe models. Like when we look at eternal universe models, how do we evaluate like total entropy if it isn't even globally defined? Like in the standard model, for example.
Yeah, so you don't, right? If it's not globally defined, then you don't. And then maybe it's just not an issue.
Well, like what about eternal inflation models? Like Guth and Linden, like the Guth-Linden picture. Like what about them?
I'm not familiar with it, so I can't. I mean, I'm like mildly familiar, but I'm not familiar enough that I can comment on it in technical detail.
Oh. And then, you know, the last question I got for you. You said you like power metal?
Yeah.
All right, so like top 5 artists.
Top 5 bands?
Mm-hmm.
So, you're gonna laugh at me. So I've been listening a lot to Beast in Black, although they're not very good live.
Ooh.
I don't know if they count as power metal. They definitely do though, right? But listening a lot to Beast in Black, probably. So let's just say in no particular order: Hammerfall, Beast in Black, Powerwolf, maybe Glory Hammer is in the top 5, maybe, and Old Camelot. Like the early power metal just doesn't do it for me.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just not about it.
What about Blind Guardian?
I like some of their stuff. I just don't know if it hits my top 5.
Ooh. Or like Gamma Ray. I've been listening to Gamma
it's
Ray.
all old stuff.
But like the old stuff, I personally prefer the old stuff. I think that's where it resonates with me the most.
So the power metal that I really like is the stuff that's really heavy on synth, and that's much more prevalent in the new stuff. So
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna kick you out though.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for being here, man. Yeah, I could pull up my So I'm old school in the sense that I don't use Spotify or a streaming service. I just have all of my music on my computer. Also, I've been listening to a lot of Ghost recently. I like Ghost's most recent album, but Ghost doesn't count as power metal, so I don't get to put them on the list. So you know. Yeah, they don't count. Did you have to take linear algebra? Yeah, of course. Oh, Polyphia is also good, but they're not power metal. How does torsion the metric affect the dynamics of the particle? Causes it to twist, right? Very, very weird. Do you use Winamp? No, I use Music Bee. I used to use Winamp though. Why do you think the element race slowed down? When you say element race, you just mean like the race to synthesize bigger, like heavier and heavier elements. I don't know if it has slowed down. It's just harder and harder to do. Does matter technically move faster than light, i.e. balls in position before photons bounce off it? No, matter does not move faster than light, no. What was the wow signal? I made a video on this somewhat recently, but roughly it was a natural maser. So a maser is a microwave laser. And these things do happen, but it seems like that this maser was just pointed at us. At least that's like the rough story. Do you have a video on CPT symmetry? I do. Yeah, from a while ago. Tasked with bringing Newton and Einstein up to modern comprehension. What resources would you use? Newton would be trickier than Einstein. Einstein would be fairly easy. Essentially just hand them the textbooks that we give to grad students. If you handed Einstein the textbooks that we give to grad students, he would pick up on it really quickly. And that basically the only reason he would need to be brought up to speed is just for notation reasons and like new data. That's basically it. Newton would be much, much harder. He would be very, very quick, but he would probably need an entire undergraduate course in physics and mathematics. And then similarly graduate school. Like that's how you would do it. You would get through it much, much quicker than like the 6 years for undergrad and masters, but are you more published in relativity or diff geo? That's a good question. I can check that right now. Let's see. I'm just checking the archive. Well, so I'm just gonna count things that I have preprints up for because not everything's like things are still under review. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 differential geometry publications or uploads on the archive, and then I have I guess 5 non-diff geo things. So a little bit more in math than in physics, but not that much more. It's about 50-50. 9 plus 10, what is it? 21. Did I do it right? Does food provide energy due to the physics of the chemicals breaking apart? Presumably, but I'm not like a biologist or a chemist, so ask them. If every motion is relative, then how the Earth is revolving around the sun, but not the opposite? Well, you could view the sun as going around the Earth, but it's in that picture, things just are a lot more complicated. That's all. The Big Bang singularity contained all things in the universe, including time. Does that mean there was no time? It didn't. It's not clear that the Big Bang had a singularity at all. But second, if it did, it would have contained all the matter, but time's not matter, so it wouldn't contain that. If every motion is relative, then how... Oh, I already answered that. I want to publish my paper on my theory of everything. What steps should you take? First get a PhD in physics and then publish it. That's the easy route. What's the most interesting math theory applied in physics with differential geometry? The differential geometry I do is actually typically more sophisticated than is required. Like the pure differential geometry I do is typically more sophisticated than is required for most physics. I suppose that there's a paper I'm working on now that we're probably going to upload in like a week, which is definitely a physics paper, but it relies on some really sophisticated conformal, or really sophisticated. It relies on fairly sophisticated conformal geometry involving a particular large associated bundle to the to the manifold, which is called the tractor bundle. There's a whole story there. But that's an interesting thing that I like to use, and it's called tractor calculus. It's my bread and butter. Do you believe in God? I do not. Do you have an opinion about how space travel and settling will progress? No, I'm like an opinion. I hope that we're not. I hope that we only colonize empty places, I guess. PhD is too long. Well, PhD is where you'll learn how to do physics. So what's the most popular topic in physics community right now? Well, the most popular topic is and has been for like 50 years condensed matter. I think that that's correct. Which do you think is easier to get a degree in, physics or astronomy or do you mean aeronautical engineering? I don't know what an aeronautical engineering degree is like, but what I do know is that a lot of engineering students who took my first or second year physics courses did not do very well. Like there were a lot of students who were struggling. Now maybe there would be physics students struggling to take engineering classes, but sorry, one moment everybody. They hung up. Okay. Superconductivity in magic angle twisted bilateral graphene is pretty hot right now. Yeah, that is condensed matter stuff. You don't believe in God, so we invented ourselves? Well, no, I don't think that we invented ourselves, but Is there any research going out for handling gravity? So much, so much. Where do you find papers that are good? So I'm on a listserv. There's a website called archive, arxiv.org, where people upload preprints. So these are preprints from like academics. These are people who are, associated with an institution of some kind, typically. And so every day I get an email from the differential geometry sub-archive. Here's all the papers that were uploaded yesterday. And I get an email from the general relativity and general relativity and quantum cosmology sub-archive. They say, here's all the papers that were uploaded yesterday. So, and then I just look through them and see if anything is interesting or not, and then I'll read those. All right, y'all, it has been 1 hour and 30 minutes, which means that my Ask a Physicist is done, because otherwise I will lose my voice. I found that if I go for longer than about an hour and a half, I lose my voice. So thank you guys all for being here. I'm going to end the live here. I will see you tomorrow at around the same time for a debate live, like we usually do. Catch you then.